Yes, guys, welcome to Chasing Green Arrows. We are back for a Friday night pre-deadline special. I'm Gianni Battici and I'm joined by regular co-host Mr. Dean Jones. Dean, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm not bad, mate. Not bad at all. It's a big week. I mean, if you look at the fixture list for this week, it's not very exciting. I mean, you see the whole Gary Lineker thing at the moment, and people are like, "Oh, who wants to actually host this show at the moment?" The reason no one wants to host it is because it's not a very good weekend. I think that's the real reason Gary Lineker doesn't want to host Match of the Day this weekend because it's not a very good game week. But in FPL terms, it is a great game week because there are a few fixtures where it could go absolutely mental. We've obviously got double game weekers too. So yeah, this is when one of those weird weeks when it's not a very sexy fixture list unless you're deep into FPL, in which case you're thinking I could go big this week.
Yeah, man, there's so many good fixtures. And with the doubles, we've all been speaking all week about Brentford and Brighton, but let's also not forget Southampton and Palace also have a double game week, although I'm not sure many of us have got their assets or even want their assets for these doubles, but they're there or thereabouts. Good to see so many in the chat, Dean. As always, we have got our regular world number one in the house. Ali J is with us. Of course, he is a CGA chaser, a regular, a friend of the channel. Ali is still joint number one. We'll be talking to him in the chat throughout the show. Of course, we will be. But also coming up in today's show, we've got our team reveals. Of course, we have. We've got Fresh Off the Press with Dean, and we've also got some chips and tips chat. And in that section, we're going to be looking later in the show at the 3 Brentford and the 3 Brighton to have. And we're also, most importantly, going to be talking, and it's the title of the show, who to captain and why. And again, I need your support with this, guys, in the chat. Ali, I need your support. Dean, I want yours. I still don't know who I'm going to captain. There are so many reasons why to go Tony. I'll give you a couple right now. Routes to points. He's got them. The talisman theory. When Brentford score, 50% of the time he's involved. The best fixture of the 4 between the 2 teams, arguably is Southampton away. Tony has that. But then there are so many reasons to go for your Brighton mids. They're the best attack in the league in terms of underlying stats at the moment. You get the extra point for a goal and you get the clean sheet point if you go for a midfielder over a Tony. They're electric, but on paper, are the fixtures a little bit trickier? I don't know. Maybe, but they do have one of the games at home. Brentford have 2 aways. So there's so much to discuss. Ali's asking what's the weather forecast. Dean, I don't know if you've seen FPL Twitter. Getting a little bit twitchy because there's 2 games potentially where you could argue they're under threat, but I think we're talking 5%. So Leicester-Chelsea, I live 20 miles from Leicester. It is very snowy, but a lot cleared today. But more importantly, Leeds versus Brighton. One of the double game week fixtures is going to be -6, -7 in Leeds overnight tonight.
Right.
Potentially. Not because there'll be too much snow on the pitch, because it will melt. It's more the travelling to the ground and safety for fans. We've seen fixtures called off in the past for that. I think it's so unlikely. And the Premier League will not want to cancel a Brighton fixture. I think they've owed 3 fixtures already. There's a huge backlog there at Brighton. But yeah, there's been a few scaremongers out there on Twitter. But I think we're talking 5% chance max.
Yeah, it depends, I guess, on the ice around the stadium and around the roads leading to Ellen Road. I mean, also Brighton to Leeds is a long way, so there's that to bear in mind. But yeah, as you say, it's not the snow and the pitch that causes the issues anymore. It's not like the old days when that was the problem and they couldn't clear it. Like all the pitches, that's all taken care of well in advance. But yeah, you can't have under motorway heating or under concrete heating in all the surrounding areas. So that is the problem, and they can't have people slipping around on their way to the game, unfortunately. But I mean, it's another factor that causes chaos, and it's another element of unpredictability that is completely out of our hands and will cause chaos if a game is cancelled.
It's fun to speculate. It's fun.
I mean, it wouldn't be fun if that Leeds game was called off. That would really annoy me.
Especially if we've all got triple Brighton and we're going captaincy on a Brighton player. And as I said, I think it's unlikely, but I think it's forecast to be -5 tonight. So it's really, really icy. But the beauty of that fixture I think there's some sun forecast in Leeds in the morning. And
it's
sun
pretty rare.
Nice
it's pretty rare, man, that they actually do call off a game.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. It's got to be really bad. And we'll know if Brighton have travelled, and I'm guessing they're travelling probably right now, or travelled even earlier today. So if they didn't travel for whatever reason, we'd know well in advance, probably pre-deadline. And it is a 3 p.m. kickoff. It's not like it's a Sunday fixture in jeopardy and we go into it really unknown. We're going to hear stuff before the FPL deadline of 11, if it's in doubt, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of shout outs in the chat tonight. Thanks everyone for jumping on. It's a good one this week. I know it's next week. There's a Friday night game, isn't there, next week? So
Is there?
Yeah, there's a Friday game next week. So we'll have to figure out what we do about that one. But it is good, our little Friday night catch-ups on here. So thanks to all the regulars for jumping on. In a sec, I think I'll probably just start by running through a few bits of team news, shall I?
Yeah, I think so. Let's get to that. Let's get to Fresh Off the Press up now.
Yeah, so we were talking about the Brighton game now, which is really why we should probably start there. There was been a few people worried about Solly March ahead of the Leeds game, and thankfully Roberto De Zerbi has confirmed that Solly March is fit and ready for the weekend. So anyone that's seen that knocking about on socials, don't worry, Solly March will be playing.
I'm one of them. One of them.
One of them. Yeah, I was chatting to someone this week about Solly March, and he's very close to signing a new contract at Brighton too.
Is he?
Which is interesting. So
new contract bounce. We saw it with Saka the other day.
Yeah, exactly that. The one worry for Brighton is Tariq Lamptey. Obviously, we all saw that he was struggling. Needs to be assessed as to whether he's fit. I mean, it looked unlikely, but we'll have to see. It used to be a player that quite a few people had in the game, wasn't it? But Lamptey not really been on my radar for some time. But yeah, that's the one from that game to look out for. I saw Leeds had Rodrigo and Sinisterra back in the frame too, coming into that one. Obviously, that's helpful for them to have more forward players in the mix. It's a team that really, really struggles to score goals. Don't really struggle to make the chances, but they do struggle to score goals, and someone needs to stand out. Rodrigo could end up being that man. I mean, there's been a couple of spells he's had before where he's been able to deliver. So they're desperate to get him and Sinisterra fit and ready for action. Crystal Palace v Man City is the 5:30 game on Saturday. Phil Foden declared fit for the game, which is good news because there's a lot of people starting to be putting faith in Phil Foden. If we remember back to this fixture at the start of the season, Palace were 2-0 up against Man City. They lost 4-2, and Haaland scored that ridiculous hat-trick that kind of set him on his way to his run of hat-tricks, basically. So anyone that is considering Haaland, I know he's only got a single game, but he did score a hat-trick against Crystal Palace earlier in the season. And Crystal Palace are not very good at all. I personally think Crystal Palace are going down.
That's a big call, that.
Mate, they are not good at all. They can't score a goal. They haven't had a shot on target for 2 games.
They're not.
He's come out talking about Edouard in a very negative manner. He's got Mateta, he's got Jordan Ayew, he's playing Zaha when he can through the middle just to try and get him the chances. But they're barely, I think they had 5 touches in the box in their last game. They haven't won a game in 2023. They have a horrible run of fixtures coming, Crystal Palace. They have this one, which is obviously a very difficult one at home to Man City. Then they've got Brighton away, which is
a big derby, isn't it?
Their big derby game, and it's also like one of the most informed teams in the country.
Yeah.
And then straight after Brighton, they've got Arsenal away. These are 3 games that are going to send Crystal Palace probably plummeting towards the relegation zone because they're only 6 points above it at the moment.
Yeah, 0 points there because very, very likely you'd think, or more likely than unlikely.
There's a very good chance that they're not taking any. If any, they might pick up 1, maybe 2 along the way. And after that, it's all 6-pointers for Crystal Palace. Leicester, Leeds, Southampton, Everton, one after the other. So it's a scrap after a scrap. And by the time, to be honest, we get to that stage, if these 3 games go as disastrously as it could, Vieira's fighting for his job, and they've got to decide whether they can trust him at that point to get them out of it. Like Crystal Palace could honestly end up in a relegation scrap, which we just haven't been expecting this season. And with the creativity they've got in the midfield and the solidity they used to have, we shouldn't be expecting So yeah, look out for this because.
So is that a worse fixture? I said Brentford have got the best fixture. They go to Southampton, but maybe Brighton have got the best fixture. They host Palace, but maybe the derby adds the extra spice. But I didn't watch Palace versus Villa last week. It's the only game on Match of the Day I missed. It was the last one on Match of the Day, and I thought, I'm done. Like, I'm happy missing this game. But by the sounds of it, I've not missed much. You said not a shot on target in the last 2 Premier League games. That is dire.
I think actually, annoyingly for them, I think Zaha had a goal. He did have a goal ruled out in the game. Palace would have gone 1-0 up, but it was VAR'd out. And then, no shots on target in 2 games now for Crystal Palace, and they're barely getting the ball into the penalty box. Who knows? Like, maybe Vieira can galvanise everybody to pull off a shock here. But as we're looking at it right now, this is the most out-of-form team in the Premier League against the most in-form team in the Premier League. City have won more games this season, this year, than anyone else in the Premier League. So this is a mismatch. And if you're tempted to go with Haaland, that might sway you.
Matt, I've just seen Punter in the chat. Dean, your phone's ringing. Patrick Vieira calling. And there's a bit of a funny link here because Dean actually got dug out in the last summer transfer window from the Crystal Palace owner on Twitter, who tweeted something like, "Who is Dean Jones?"
He was Dean Jones, got a bigger network than MI5. But and actually, I wrote a story about this the other day for Give Me Sport, talking about Vieira's future. And anytime I do a Crystal Palace, I don't do many Crystal Palace stories. I mean, it's not a club
Steve Parish is on you.
Well, yeah, and I was like, I'm going to be a little bit careful how I write this one because Steve Parish might be onto me here. I mean, the stories are 100% legit. I mean, I'm very confident that, to be honest, if he was to come up through these 3 games and then lose the Leicester one, I think actually Vieira would probably be gone. But we'll see.
Give it Roy. Give it back to Uncle Roy. He's got the keys to Croydon, hasn't he?
I think he's retired, mate. I think he's done now. All right, let's just move on to a couple more things. Chelsea they've suddenly found some form.
Come on, what a win that was. That Dortmund game, we absolutely smashed it. We deserved to win the first leg. What a performance in that second leg. Bossed it.
Well, let's see if they have turned a corner. Because to lose to Leicester away now would be very Graham Potter, wouldn't it? Reece James, out. Raheem Sterling, doubtful. Aubameyang, not
Rubbish.
One of the players that's going to be stepping in for Sterling. Could be that Mudryk comes in here. Could be that Mudryk gets a prolonged run out. Potter been talking about him quite a bit in his presser, talking about how he's needed time to adapt, but he has been getting stronger and probably will, by the sound of it, be given a run out of sorts. He didn't, go into detail on how long he felt he could play. But with Sterling out, there's a chance that Mudryk comes. I mean, for me, my big reading into it is like João Felix is the man to have from that Chelsea team.
Yeah, he's good.
I've got him luckily, and as we see when we look at our teams, like my big question really is who I put on the bench this week, which has been a bit of a headache. But at the moment, I've got João Felix in the team just because of Chelsea's little pickup and the fact that I think that Felix is the most dangerous player in the team. So we'll get onto that in a bit. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp says Luis Diaz could be back next week. So that's one to have in the back of our minds. With that coming back, could affect other assets. I just one to finish off. No one's got him, but Southampton, they did win last week and Carlos Alvarez scored the goal. He injured himself in the celebration. This sums up Southampton's season. He did a knee slide. He picked up a knee injury. He's now a big doubt for Southampton.
I always think knee slides. How many times I see knee slides when it's done on a pitch that's not that wet and you see the sort of jerk motion and you think, oh, like your legs are your tools. Like, I don't know how much players' legs are insured for, but don't jeopardize yourself. Don't tempt fate with an injury for a celebration. Like as a manager, you must watch that and go, just do the old Alan Shearer, hand in the air.
Yeah, I mean, Sells did say, he said, he feels really bad for the fact that this is how he's injured himself. He said, but, he's only young and players learn from stuff like this and they get carried away in the moment. But yeah, I don't think he's entirely happy. Niall says, Mr. Jones, wow, I've not been addressed like that for a while. Mr. Jones, Spurs are in shambles. Does Conte make it to and or pass Forest or sacked before or thereafter? Okay, so Spurs are trying to see this out for as long as possible. There's a few things to bear in mind as Tottenham look for a new manager. It costs £5 million to get rid of Conte in the first place. Conte's just been through serious surgery. I mean, it doesn't look great on them to sack him the week after he's come back from recovering from serious surgery. They don't have an obvious replacement set up to come in. Pochettino is the favourite to come in. That's because Daniel Levy really wants Pochettino. There are other people in the club not so sure that's a great idea. One of the big things to consider with this, the guy whose job it actually is at Tottenham to recommend the next manager is Fabio Paratici. He would not stay at the club probably if they were to bring in Pochettino, because Pochettino is not going to come into Tottenham as just head coach. If he was to come back to Tottenham, he would want to have like a massive say in, player purchases, who's leaving, like what the overall look is of the whole club. That's Paratici's job. And so I'm not sure he's even going to want to go there. Of course, they're going to have to look at it, but I think he'll be desperate to come up with some alternative ideas that could tempt Levy to go in another direction. I don't think he'll look if they lose to Forest, then they've got to make a decision, obviously. But they shouldn't lose that game. And they hope they can get to the end of the season. I mean, at the moment, their intent is to get to the end of the season with Conte. I don't personally think they'll get that far.
Yeah.
Because I think the fan pressure will build too much. And I think also Conte will become too difficult to manage and they'll end up having to pay him off. I think, you can already see the way he's acting.
He loves a payoff.
He loves a payoff. He loves a row. He loves causing a bit of chaos.
He didn't look himself, though. I was seeing Conte on the touchline. He's clearly still not well. He's not looked great at Spurs. It's the first time I've seen Conte fail. And I'm genuinely disappointed for him because I love Conte and he's been rubbish. But seeing him on the touchline, there looked like there was very little spark there, which is just so what you're not used to with Conte. In a big Champions League game, I don't think he's ever made it to the quarterfinals in the Champions League. It's a really bad record for a manager that's always done well domestically. But yeah, I thought there was very little fight there from the team, but on the touchline too. And look, teams often resemble their manager and they mimic their manager. And when Spurs have been flying and Conte's been high, they've had some good times, but it was always going to be borrowed time with Spurs and Conte because that's what Conte does. He's never anywhere long. He falls out.
Obviously. Yeah, it's true. And he usually leaves amid a bit of chaos, doesn't he? I mean, you obviously support Chelsea, you know that. Juventus will remember that. But this is...
What do we do with our Spurs FPL assets, though, Dean?
Do
you think they're going to keep? Do you think they're going to scrape through? Do you still think we'll see some big, high upside performances when the fixtures are there? They've got Forest at home.
It's Forest at home.
The worst team away on the road. Forest.
I've got Harry Kane. They've got Nottingham Forest at home.
He should be a captain option.
He should be my captain. He should still be my captain. And it's really hard for me to convince myself that that's not the pick for this week, even though I know the form's not there from Kane or from Tottenham. This season, it hasn't really mattered. Form, the results have been all over the place in the Premier League. Yeah. There's been we've seen there's no consistency from Tottenham. They could easily come out from this one, score 3 or 4, probably concede a couple too, but, Kane could get 2 goals in this game easily. Probably is his last season. I think the only man that could really convince him to stay at Tottenham is probably Pochettino at this point. So that's another reason why he might come back. But if Kane if this is his last season, he's going to want to go out with a bang. And at the moment, it's a bit of a whimper, isn't it? So he's the one man that always does come good for them. So it's just niggling away at me at the moment. There's obviously the options. I've got Rashford, I've got Mitoma. I've got Haaland, who's got Palace, but it's Harry Kane, Nottingham Forest at home. Just can't get away from it.
So Ali in the chat, world number 1 in the chat, Ali J, he's just said in the chat, Spurs at home are always decent. And one thing I found from speaking to Ali in the week was he's genuinely looking at some of the single game week for captaincy. And he often will be bold and go against a grain with captaincy. Earlier in the season, Ali bet against Salah and Kane a fair few times when every week we were just going Haaland. Bet against Haaland a few times with those guys. So it's interesting. Ali, if you have made a decision, you'll probably be tweeting it later or in the morning. And make sure you're following Ali on Twitter, guys. His handle, I think, is FPL Guns. But Ali, let us know in the chat who you're looking to captain. And we'll get to our captaincy chat later. But before we do, Dean, $1 million question. And look, if you tune into Chasing Green Arrows regularly during the transfer windows, and again, this summer we'll be doing it a lot, we'll have dedicated shows on pretty much on transfers, right? Because Dean's got his ear to the ground, got amazing contacts in the Premier League, and he's got some scoops for us, and he will continue to have that on this show in the not too distant. But Dean, if you're a betting man, where would you bet on Harry Kane being next season?
I mean, if it's not Tottenham, then it probably is Man United. The stories that came out at the start of the week about United having their eye on him at a reduced amount if Tottenham didn't make the Champions League. I checked it out, and it's the first. I got to say, it's the first time I've had any positive signs from people around Tottenham that actually, they might sell him. So somebody just asked, like, is it possible, or like, how much would he be, or something? Does Levy sell Kane domestically this summer with 12? Look, he's got to consider it, because if Harry Kane doesn't sign a contract extension, he faces losing Tottenham's all-time top goal scorer in 12 months' time for absolutely nothing. Right? This is a guy who was going to join. It was a £150 million player a year ago. 2 years down the line from that, he could be walking away for nothing. Bear in mind, and in that time that's in between, you're paying Harry Kane between 10 and 15 million pounds for the season. So there's that gone out the window too. And then Kane leaves for nothing. You've got to replace him. So you've got to then spend 50, 60, 70, 80 million pounds to replace Harry Kane in your team, who's not only the striker, but he's the captain as well. So, there is a possibility that Tottenham sell Harry Kane to another Premier League club, because all the money is in the Premier League. There's not many teams out there. Bayern Munich are interested. Will they get to 80 million pounds? I mean, that would be a Bundesliga record, I believe. They're certainly not going to go above that. So if Man United were to go say, okay, we'll give you 85, I think Harry Kane does go to Man United in the end. So it is a possibility. It's definitely there. We know United won a number 9. Him and Osimhen talked about a lot. Sorry. I mean, there's other players they're looking at. They're looking at Seshko. They're looking at a couple of others too. Gonzalo Ramos, they're not totally sold on that idea. He's priced very high for what he's achieved so far.
That's what Benfica do.
Yeah, exactly.
They got 86 for Darwin, didn't they? They got crazy money for Enzo. Felix left Benfica for 115 million. If you're buying a good player from Benfica, you are spending above and beyond, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, Ramos has got 120 million euro release clause. Yeah, and I think he's got a good goals return this season overall, but he's failed to score in 9 out of 19 games in Portugal's domestic league. So you look at that and you're thinking, okay, his overall record looks like he's scoring close to a goal a game or whatever, but that is because he's getting, quite often, if he scores 2 in the same game. Yeah. So it's very difficult to weigh up the consistencies. I mean, the one thing you would say is that the players do typically make that transfer from Portugal to the Premier League pretty well, so that would go in his favour. But it's very interesting. But Harry Kane to Man United, don't discard it. That's all I say. I know it does sound like transfer tittle tattle, and it's just paper talk or however you want to pitch it. But honest, it's the first time really that United rumour with Kane has had proper substance to it, in my opinion.
Nice, like that. Shall we do a few quick fire? The chat is popping off. I'm loving it. And so many, of course, it's 12 hours to the deadline. There's going to be tons of questions. So if you want to, guys, put your questions in. Anything that's not related to captaincy, because we're going to have a dedicated captaincy chat in 20 minutes. So if you've got a question, feel free to ask. There's loads coming in. Feel free to pick out a few, guys. Looks like Ali would consider Kane if he had him. And he looks like Salah loves Bournemouth away. So maybe Ali will be going away from the double game weekers, which is interesting for captaincy. Stuart asks, Odegaard versus Maddison. Personally, I would play Odegaard. I think there's a chance he misses out because we know he's had the sniffles, but I'd still think if Odegaard's fit, he's fit to start. I don't think Odegaard's going to come off the bench and get 10 minutes unless they're losing and they really need him. So I think you're safe with a start or a not playing at all. Maddison is Chelsea, and I think Chelsea keep a clean sheet against Leicester. Chelsea defence is starting to look good again. It's a back 5. Chelsea's shape is the reason for this recent Chelsea success. This is a squad built for 3-4-3. And against Leeds last week and against Dortmund, what did Potter do? Finally, Graham, he went 3-4-3 and the results were brilliant. 2 clean sheets, 2 wins. Chelsea's best performance of the season, arguably, against Dortmund. How many is Min for 28?
I presume he means minimum turnout, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and if you're debating a free hit or not, I would free hit if I couldn't get 7 or 8 out. I'm gonna get 10, I think, without a hit.
Yeah.
So I'm happy with 10. You could go get 11 out and take a hit. It's a 2-point hit, not a 4-point hit. It's 2 appearance points. But that might mean you're selling a really good player. Like if I took a hit to get 11 out, I'd be selling a Brighton player or Rashford. And it's like, no, Rashford has a double in 29 and Brighton have a double in 29. So I'm going to bench 3 Brighton and bench Rashford and probably sell Haaland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I think as it stands, I can't remember if it's 9 or 10 that I'll be due to have for that week. But we'll have to, we'll feel it out the week before and see if it actually looks feasible to go with that many or whatever. It might obviously be depleted by then. Who knows? Like if any of these players pick up knocks before then, if you lose any more, you do start to worry if you're getting down to 8.
Yeah. Tony might pick up 2 yellow cards. If Tony gets 2 yellows in the next 2, he's got a 2-game suspension.
Yeah, true. Just to pick up, FPL Focus asked if Palhinha will be playing for Fulham against Arsenal. No, he won't. He's suspended again. Honestly, I couldn't believe quite how much we missed him against Brentford. It was massive. It's way more than we've missed Mitrovic when he hasn't played this season. And I have to say, I'm obviously going to the game on Sunday. I'm not looking forward to it at all.
Oh, we're all benching our Arsenal players, Dean. This isn't good.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? This is what. But like in my my team at the moment, I've only got one of my 3 Arsenal players starting. But I'm like, the way we played against Brentford, like it was definitely I'd say it's our worst performance so far this season. And I'm like, that was against Brentford. So what are we going to get against Arsenal? Like the moves that they're in. So a little bit concerned about that, people. A little bit concerned.
Question for Janet. If you could choose a 3-course meal for Dean, what would be your choices? Oh, wow. That's a tough one. A 3-courser. I mean, I would go for some sort of seafood linguine for my main, for sure. My starter, I'm quite big on seafood. I
saw the old monkfish earlier you were having, weren't you?
I had a great monkfish curry earlier. Yeah. My local pub, because it's to celebrate being a snow day, put on Instagram any main for a tenner today. And I'm like, I usually go to that pub on a Monday because they do like a cheap lunch deal on a Monday, and I work from there on a Monday. But usually I'm like, the a la carte menu is too expensive. Like it's sort of birthdays and occasions. This monkfish curry, I've had a few times. It's 30 quid. It's an expensive main. And I was like, oh, they're doing it for a tenner. I was like, I'll have 2, please. Yeah. My wife and I both went and had one each. But usually I can't justify 30 quid on a curry.
No.
Before drinks and sides and all that.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
What do you reckon for this one, Dean? He looked good against Fulham, didn't he?
Mate, both times he's played against us this season, he's looked really good.
Oh yeah, you said live he was amazing.
Live, he's one of the players that's caught my eye, or caught me by surprise, I guess, the most. I guess it's a Tony cover. It's a good shout. I can't work out why Tony's still playing, to be honest. I don't really understand the process that's going on here. But yeah, I think it's a good shout.
Yeah. Matty says Saka or... It's worth noting with Mboma, when Tony does get suspended, Bomo will have pens as well.
Yeah.
Saka or Martinelli bench. I'm going to bench Martinelli. I'm not comfortable benching either, but I think it's a very easy decision. Saka beats any other Arsenal mid because there's more routes to points, like he's on penalties, but also he's just their standard. He's just their star boy. Like as good as Martinelli's been, and as much as, yes, he could play number 9, I always back, if you own both, Saka over Martinelli, I think. Do you, Dean?
I mean, at the moment, yeah, that's what I've got too. I mean, my big question as we see it, when we see the teams, will be, do I start Martinelli or do I start João Felix? That's really my thing. Like, do I drop out an attacker and bring in another midfielder? That's quite a tough one, to be fair.
That's a very tough one. Reese or Chile in 28 double. Yes, Sahab. Good question and loads of mentions of Chile. So I'm glad we've answering this one. Chilwell looks to stand out. Like as good as Reece James is in FPL, I think the way Chile is playing, he's in more advanced positions. I looked at the touch maps the other day from the Leeds game, and he got the assist against Leeds and the assist against Dortmund. I think I'd go Chilwell. And he also doesn't carry the same threat of being injured every other week.
Yeah, exactly that. It's the Reece James, the inconsistency of his turnouts at the moment is a bit worrying. We know that they're monitoring his minutes. Obviously, he was left out of the squad completely last week or the week before. Now he's got a little illness. Don't know. His
Do you reckon
body.
he's ill, Dean, or are they protecting him? Because against Dortmund in the last minute, Bellingham went so heavy on him and he was rolling around. And Thiago Silva's even done a selfie video his wife uploaded. I don't know if you've seen it. And Thiago Silva's going, not like, he's sort of saying it in Portuguese, like something along the lines of, not my boy, ref, send him off. And you could see Thiago Silva was genuinely concerned because Reece isn't the sort of player that rolls around.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe he's got a knock and they just don't want to say it because he's always getting knocks. But I don't know.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, he properly went into him, didn't he, Bellingham? But yeah, I mean, they've said it's ill, but you're right. It could just be defending him, protecting him.
Morsey, we will reward you this once for spamming the chat, but none of that, please, mate. Do you know what? We're gonna have to get FPL Focus or who else mentioned it? Don't flood the chat. A few did. Maybe we need a mod. Maybe FPL Focus should be our mod because I think he might be one of the scout mods.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
And we love you, Graham. So thank you for that. But look, Morsey, it's a fair question. But you still asked it again. I would replace him, and De Zerbi's comments today said at the moment that they're competing, but still suits the way we want to play. I would actually sell Sanchez to Steele, so you've still got that Brighton player off one transfer. Or you bring in another keeper like Raya, and then you've got an empty Brighton spot, and for a hit, you could go triple Brighton midfield, or you could bring in a Stupinan or something. So I think still getting 3 Brighton if you're selling Sanchez is key.
Yeah. That's a good point. Blimey, FPL Madridista says, I'm expecting Palace to beat City. That's why I'm benching Haaland for Martinelli, going with my feelings. I mean, that would be the most nonsensical result of the season so far, in a way. But you know what? The season doesn't make any sense. Liverpool just beat Man United 7-0. So go with your gut instincts. Like, if you genuinely think that, then go for it. Because, like, you'll be kicking yourself if you're all right. If you're right, then... yeah, you're gonna really have the edge on other people who will not be thinking, certainly not expecting Palace to beat Man City this weekend. Like, that is a big gut feeling to be having.
Yeah, it really is. FPL Focus says he's bringing back the thesis on dribbling, so he's going to go Matoma captain. Gaurav says who will be the Arsenal front 3. I think it will be Martinelli and Trossard between the 9 and the left, and then Odegaard and then 10 and Saka on the right. That's what's been working recently. Jesus is back now, proper training,
isn't he? Yeah,
so I think we'll see him soon. Yeah.
Lovely
stuff,
timing.
guys. Thank you so much for all the interaction in the chat. We're always got our eyes on the chat. Please do like the channel if you like what you're seeing tonight. And also, guys, we really want to get our subs up because we know we've got a loyal following, but we also know that we want to reach out a new audience. And we can do that because the YouTube algorithm works in mysterious ways. And when it sees likes and when it sees people subscribing, it puts this show in front of more people. We're going to continue to do these shows live on Mondays and Fridays. So we need your support between now and the end of the season. We will be here. And the reason we do them live, and you'll watch me and Dean on other platforms and on YouTube for other channels doing stuff pre-recorded a lot. But what we like about this show is the interaction with you guys. We want to be the most interactive show on FPL YouTube. So thank you very much for the support. And yeah, as I say, like button and subscribe with that bell if you can. But we're going to move on now. We're going to show our teams, and then we've still got chips and tips where we're going to be talking captaincy, best 3 Brentford, best 3 Brighton. So next up, let's check out our teams.
Okay, so we'll start with me. Yeah, as I just mentioned, like my real headache is that bench, really. I'm not hopeful as a Fulham fan going into this Arsenal game, and I've got 2 Arsenal assets on the bench that I fear Gabriel could have a shutout, and I fear that Martinelli will score. And at the moment, I've got João Felix in my team with a hunch that Chelsea have turned the corner and that he is the danger man. But honestly, there's so little in this that I just don't know which way to go. And obviously the other dilemma too is like, who's the captain out of this lot? Like,
have you considered a bench boost, or are you set on a double? You want 29 when it's more doublers, because that's a
no, I mean
great bench boost.
yeah, I mean that is the I was going to get around to that. Bench boost has never done anything for me in this game. I don't think I've ever like successfully pulled it off. So
Similar
waiting and waiting, what for? What am I really going to wait for? So you're right. Like, I think that is at the moment my way around this. Like, it's a new team that I've obviously just wildcarded for, like last week. I've got enough players on the double, but now because Arsenal looking such, it's again though, like I'm a Fulham fan. I don't want these players to do well, so it's
and you're
really,
at the game.
it kills me. This kills me. Like I preferred it when Fulham were in the Championship. I didn't have any of this, but I think a bench boost might be the way forward. Let me know in the chat what you think. Madridista says
Your 29 bench boost is going to be so good as well, though. You'll have, because Raya and Kepa, for example, just on keepers, they both will be doubling. So you'll have, so just from keepers alone, you'll have the extra game. We've got such a similar team, but even more similar benches. So I've got Kepa, Martinelli, Zinchenko instead of Gabriel, and Botman instead of Byrne. So we've got very similar dilemma, but I still think 29 bench boost will be better. Do you not think Fulham will score? I think Gabriel and Zinchenko will lose clean sheets because Arsenal have been finding a way of conceding. They're not keeping cleans, Arsenal.
I hope we do, obviously, and we too tend to score
at home as well.
At home too. I mean, Mitro's not on form, so there's that to take into account. Palhinha, as I say, like that has been a big factor in the last game as to the way that we played. Like we didn't play with the same tempo as we normally do. By the way, everyone in the chat suggesting that I go Felix to Toney. I'm a Fulham fan and will not be picking Ivan Toney. Like Ben Mee can go in for this, okay, and Raya can go in because they're defenders. I'm not backing Ivan Toney to score any more goals. He's hurt me enough this week. I don't want him in my team. I don't like Ivan Toney. I'm a Fulham fan.
Also, Felix plays Everton in the blank 28, which is a really good fixture. And then Felix has a double in 29. So I wouldn't want to sell Felix this week.
Exactly. I brought him in last week for a reason. I knew that there was no blanks coming, and I feel like he is the player to have from that front line. So this was before Havertz scored, obviously. But still, I'm fine with it. I'm fine with Felix. And that's why I don't really want to take him out to stick Martinelli in or whatever. So, yeah.
I think you've got it right. Tough. If I was you, I think I might go Martinelli over Felix, but I completely understand Felix and Martinelli, and I wouldn't want to sell Felix either. But that is the only one. I wouldn't want to drop any of those other players out. It would be either Felix for Martinelli and the rest. And I think we'll be okay. I think Newcastle will actually concede to Wolves because they've been bad-ish of late, and Wolves are on a bit of a high. And I'd like to think that Arsenal will concede as well. So it is only that Martinelli spot where I'm on the bench really nervous about.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? I'm hoping that a lot of people are going to be doing the same thing. I mean, that is one thing here that could get me out of this. Like, I don't know how many people are going to actually have Martinelli in their team this week. It's like he's well owned, but is he going to be? He won't be playing in all the teams this week because they're going to have done exactly what we've done. So that is the thing that'll dig me out a little bit. I hope.
Ali's got the same dilemma. Like people saying to you, sell Felix to Toney.
Sell Haaland.
The world number one. Ali in the chat does not have Toney. And he said to me a couple of days ago, the only way I can really get Toney is if I sell Felix. But after consideration, Ali's now saying it's tempting, but I'd rather sell Haaland than Felix. It's a fair point because Haaland in the next 3 game weeks, plays twice. He's got Palace, a blank, then Liverpool. Yet Felix plays 4 times. And Toney, for example, plays 5 times. So if you're comparing Toney and Haaland, and maybe not for Dean, because we know he doesn't want to buy Toney for a few reasons, but if you're comparing Haaland and Toney like Ali, you get 2 fixtures for Haaland or you get 5 for Toney in the same period. If I was you, Ali, and I cannot tell the world number one what to do, I'd be tempted to go Haaland to Toney.
Interesting, isn't it? I can't believe he's contemplating taking, isn't it? Yeah, I can't believe he's contemplating taking Haaland out ahead of Palace. But, Haaland just, I don't know, he hasn't been the same, but that it can turn at any moment. So it's going to be a gamble whenever you take him out. I just don't know who to skip, to be honest. Like, I don't know if to stick it on Rashford, a Brighton player, or Kane, basically. Like, that is where I'm at. It probably won't be Rashford. I'm probably most tempted by the Brighton players or Kane.
Yeah. Interesting. We'll get the chat's take on that, and we'll do let's do captaincy at the end of the show, shall we? And get everyone's thoughts. But I'm so torn. And yeah, Punter says interesting take on like the Haaland selling now. I guess the Haaland Tony switch. Yes, I've said it's 5 fixtures to 2. Next week I'll be saying the same thing, but I'll be saying it's 3 fixtures for Tony and 1 for Haaland. So maybe that's a move Ali and co make next week. If you don't have Tony, Haaland will have 1 fixture next week in the next 2 games, and Tony will have 3. So it's the 5-2 or the 3-1, if you're with me. So you could wait a week on that Haaland-Tony switch, and then you still get Haaland for Palace. Okay, cool. Dean, we've got similar problems. Let's see my team. It's very similar. We've both got bench boost still to use if we want to, but 29 bench boost just feels a little bit better because of a few extra doublers. Okay. I'm set with my bench this week. It's definitely going to be Martinelli because I'm not going to bench Haaland, Kane or Tony or any of those mids. My big dilemma is captaincy, so we'll park that chat as well. I'm not making a transfer. I can say that with confidence. And next week, I'm almost certainly selling Haaland for the reasons I just said. He'll have 1 fixture in 2 game weeks, and I'll bring him back for game week 30 where he is Southampton. So next week, I'm looking for a forward. And if Felix impresses me tomorrow against Leicester, and it's a game I've got a ticket for, but I'm not going because my dad's coming around to do some DIY, and I'm like, oh.
See you, Dad.
Cam was like, if you don't do it with your dad, he won't do it. And like he wants his hand holding, and it's like, we only see each other once a month. So I'm like, I wish I could take my dad to Chelsea, and then we go for a curry and then do DIY together on the Sunday. He's staying over. But she was like, no, you need to do it on the Saturday afternoon because on Sunday you've got the baby and you won't be able to be hands-on. So I'm missing Chelsea. So annoying.
That is really annoying.
So annoying. So yeah, I'll be listening on the radio and I'm outside making a planter for the wife.
Wow.
So yeah, next week I'll be selling Haaland. It will be Felix. It will be Havertz. It could be Watkins. Let's see what happens this weekend. But I'll be buying a forward that has 3 fixtures over Haaland's 1. But let's move on. We've seen my team. We've seen Dean's team. We really want your take in the chat, but also we'll give our take on the top 3 Brentford, the top 3 Brighton, and more importantly, who to captain this game week is the $1 million question. During the next thing, guys, if you fancy hitting that like button and subscribing, that'd be awesome. Next up, we have got Chips and Tips. Oh, CH, always good value. Take your dad to the game, buy a planter on the way home. So I don't have a second ticket, mate. Otherwise I would. And yeah, no, the wife's already bought the railway sleepers for the planter. It's like, she's got this.
It's all set. It's all set.
It's all set. What's your take on Brentford, Dean? We both own 2 minimum. I think I own 3, you own 2. These are the 3 I own. If you were to put these in order, I know you don't like Tony, but Tony would be the one you have to go for this week, right?
Yeah, of course. Like, obviously, like take out my Fulham bias, and Tony is the one that you want. By the way, the way he takes penalties is just absurd. Like, never misses, and just so cool about it. Like, his mindset's mad. If he didn't have this pending investigation, he'd be in the England. He'd be getting an England call up, wouldn't he? Like, he would 100%. Yeah, like he's playing great. He's a really good player. I'm just not allowed to like him, but yeah, Tony is the one that I'd go. And then I'd probably go Raya, to be honest. It's the defender, I think, that I find the hardest pick. I mean, I think I must have just been able to afford me easier or something. I can't remember why I picked me now, but yeah, it's What way do you go with Henry?
I think you need triple Brentford purely for the fixtures, for the volume of fixtures. So they're the only team that has 5 fixtures in 3 game weeks. Like when that fixture in game week 28 was added, I mean, that forced a lot of us into wildcards. It was, we need to stack up on Brentford. Yeah. Do I see clean sheets in their double game weeks? Well, I don't think I see many. I think I might see 1 or 2 in those 5 fixtures because they don't keep that many clean sheets on the road, and they've got a lot of away games in there. And I do like Brentford at home, but I think even when they don't keep clean sheets, Ray has still got a good chance of points. He does clock up some save points. We can see 10 save points there since the restart. That's useful. And what Brentford do is they concede a ton of chances, but they're often quite low XG chances. Shots from distance, comfortable saves, for example. Henry, I think, is due. Like, he hasn't, from off the top of my head, that 1.54 XGI, I don't think he's had a goal or an assist since the restart. Maybe he's had one, but he's definitely underperforming that. So I think he's due. 4.5 is good value. When Brentford play with wing backs, it's even better. Sometimes it's a 4, sometimes it's a 5, but regardless, he gets forward. And Tony, I think, is a very obvious captaincy shout this game week. And let us know in the chat who you are captaining. And by the way, guys, good to have royalty in the chat. Ali's in the chat with us, world number 1, no less. Also, we've got FPL Black Box in the chat. I don't know if that's Mark or Az. I'm thinking that's probably Az. Although Garden Centre game was the reference, which is more of a Mark reference. So I don't know. But lovely to see Black Box in the chat. The absolute GOAT, in my opinion, of FPL YouTube content. And the award winners from the Football Content Awards. 2 years on the trot, they got the gold. And very different to this show. Which is lovely. I like the fact that it's very different. Black Box is rich on data as well as very good chat. Dean and I are probably a little bit lighter on the data. In fact, what you can see on the screen is as big as we go. There it is, Mark. It's as big as we go on data. So, Mark, I hope you're enjoying it and I hope we've picked out some of the good numbers for you. Mark, of course, is the founder of Fantasy Football Scout, another Go platform. So yeah, I think that's where we are on Brentford. My problem with captaincy, Dean, is when Brentford score, I think it's 50% plus of the time Tony's involved. Yeah. So when you look at it and think, oh, I'm expecting Brentford to score 3 goals over the double game week versus Brighton's 5, but those 3 goals, I get 1.5. I know Tony's involved. Yet with Brighton, the spread of points amongst the attackers is far, far greater. Yeah, which I think is why many are looking at Tony. But let's talk Brighton assets because this interests you more as a non-Tony owner. Where are you looking if you go? You only own. Do you just own?
I've got March and Matoma.
Yeah. So if you captain one of them, which one will it be?
It'll be Matoma if I captain one, but I wish I'd picked McAllister now. The week when we were we're doing our wild cards, we convinced ourselves that McAllister was ranked 3 out of these lot, and then
he did.
Played well, scored on pens, and all these factors start coming into it. And now I'm like, probably wish I'd taken him just for the pens alone. Like, it's probably worth the hunch, but I haven't got him, so I might as well forget about it. I'm happy to have March and Matoma. Like, I really am. I think Brighton look great. They're in great form. And these two, one of them is always bubbling. Like, one of them's always going. And, like, you never know which one it's going to be. So to have both is great. Obviously, like, picking a captain out of the two of them isn't easy. But based on what happened last time when, you were torn and Jules said, go Matoma, that stuck in my head. So I'm always go Matoma now over March, because if she's seen him in real life as many times as she has, you go Matoma, then I'm taking that because I don't see enough of Brighton, in real life to know that is the place to go. So yeah, I mean, I've got a Estupiñán as well. Like FPL Focus just mentioned Estupiñán. Yeah, that is the defender I've got. But yeah, obviously these 3 are the ones that are likely to be people's top choices.
The week Jules told me to go Matoma over March, and I went March, I went to the game. It was Leicester-Brighton. And I came away from that game, and I think Matoma got 13 points in March too. And I came away from that game going, why the hell did I not buy Matoma? In terms of eye test, Matoma, and as from Black Box will say this and was telling Mark on Black Box earlier this week, there's just something about Matoma when you watch games that makes you want to give him the armband and makes you want to pick him, even though the numbers don't necessarily back it up, because we can see their 5 goals and we can see his XG. He's certainly an overperformer. But when you look at the total amount of shots even and big chance creation, so both big outputs there for assists and goals, he's way down. Like, he doesn't have many shots. He doesn't produce much in terms of creativity. Not when you compare him to March and McAllister, but still you go, he's still so good. And he produces moments of magic. And all the data we've been looking at in the FPL environment this week on FPL Twitter, for example, and on YouTube, we always compare the Premier League stats. And I think back to a game involving Matoma not long ago, which wasn't a Premier League game. It was the FA Cup when they beat Liverpool. Was it 3-0? I can't remember. But I remember in that game, Matoma scoring that worldie. And I just thought, that was another game he really caught my eye. And in that game, he was all over them. And his numbers in that game would have been really, really good. So I've got that in the back of my mind too. And I'm really torn on captaincy this week. At the start of the week, I was Matoma. Then I was March. And today I've been Tony. Literally, I think Tuesday Matoma, Wednesday March, Thursday or Friday Tony. So I don't know where I'm at. I really don't. I do think there's more goals in this Brighton attack than there is the Brentford attack. But I'm scared about the spread of points. And I just think with Tony, there's a 50-odd% chance he's involved when they score. And I think there's probably only a 20-30% chance that Matoma or March are involved when Brighton score.
Yeah. With obviously it's an 11 o'clock deadline on Saturday. Brighton play at 3 o'clock. We've already talked about at the top of the show that there's a small chance that the Leeds-Brighton game comes into doubt. If the weather is terrible overnight and you're getting towards 11 o'clock and there is genuine doubt about this game going ahead, what do you do? How do you treat that?
Yeah, I definitely move the armband away from Brighton assets if that's the case. Because it's such a 50-50 call already, that would tip me over.
Yeah.
Then there is a question to suggest. Let's say there was news that game is likely to be off. Should you be benching a Brighton asset or two? Because sure, they have a good fixture against Palace at home that will be on. Would you prefer Martinelli against Fulham or Matoma against Palace? I don't know. Probably Martinelli, right? So again, it questions what you'll do with your Arsenal assets. But I think we'll probably be fine and the game will be on. But it's definitely worth having your ear to the ground on Saturday morning. And FPL Twitter will be a very good place for information and probably some fake info. So err on the side of caution. Just touching on McAllister's stats. Neither of us have got him. They're obviously very good. And they're even better since he's moved to number 10. I just wonder with Lamptey out injured, if we're going to see Pascal Gross play right back again over the course of the doubles and the blank. And if we do, then I think it'll be McAllister and Caicedo in the middle. And we could see Welbeck and Ferguson playing. No one's really talking about this. Very, very few think that will happen. And they all see Gross as a midfielder, and he is. He's played a hell of a lot of right back this season. And Brighton have played really well with Gross at right back. So yes, Veltman can come in, but just monitor that one.
Yeah, no, I like that. That is a good point. That is a very good point. Yeah, very interesting. Like, it's a tense Saturday afternoon, I tell you. Like, I'm just looking at now all these games at the same time: the Brighton game, the Chelsea game, the Tottenham game, the Brentford game. Like, we're literally going to be watching these games happening at the same time, weighing up our decisions, and I'll probably be in despair, but
I'm going to be knee deep in mud and ice in the garden with a planter and my railway sleepers.
Yeah, sounds like a bad weekend for DIY outside.
Honestly, the worst, but my dad's available, so I've got to make the most of it. Guys, we've got time for some very quick fire questions. So hit us with your questions. Ali says he's going to be waiting until very late before the deadline before making up his mind. Ali is world number one, and he is a CGA chaser. And we love having him in our chat every Monday and Friday. We do these streams at 7, which is awesome. Hit us with your questions. Let's have a look. We're going to do alternative answers. We've got 4 minutes. We'll try and get through. I reckon we can do 10 questions, can't we?
Yeah.
Let's have a go then. Whack them on screen. We are ready for you. I think the questions are coming. Yes, here we go. Over to you, Dean.
Keep Salah or Martinelli. Oh, do you know what? I think you go Salah.
Yeah,
Salah.
Ali's thinking of captaining Salah.
Yeah, Salah.
Next up, we've got Tom. Sanchez out from -4. Ward versus Chelsea backup. Yeah, if I was selling Sanchez, I'd want to get another Brighton asset. Whether that's Steele or not, I'd probably just go Steele, unless you already have a Brighton defender. I don't fancy Ward to keep it clean against Chelsea. Chelsea will score, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. KDB or Odegaard to the bench. I mean, KDB hasn't had a good season at all. Odegaard, if he starts against Fulham, good chance he play. I'd probably go, if you were going to make a choice, then probably go KDB bench.
That's a tough one, punter.
It's a tough one, though, yeah.
Next up, we've got Rel. Shall I bring in McAllister for a 4-point hit and bench Odegaard? Yes, I probably just would. If you don't have triple Brighton, I'd be bringing in the third Brighton for a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
especially that one. Felix or Havertz? Oh, that's a nice question, Jambo. I mean, Havertz on pens might be the edge now. No Sterling playing, so Havertz definitely starts. I'll probably go Havertz. Hurts me to say
Potter's
that.
given him 90 as well, which is good. Felix might always get 75, 80 because there's good attacking numbers or players behind him. But Havertz is the only 9.
Yep.
Derek Emerson of West Ham United. Yeah, Italy Emerson. A decent punt. I like him for 29. I would swerve all West Ham. I think they're a bad game away from always being sacked. I know they always win in Europe, but they play teams from Cyprus. So, of course, they do. I'd be swerving. I know the fixtures are good in 29. I still would swerve.
Yeah.
And sometimes he plays the Cresswell left back anyway.
Yeah, if I was picking a West Ham player, I'd probably go Danny Ings to score against Aston Villa. That'd probably be my main pick. Estupiñán or Tony captain. Tony captain, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the pick.
World number one's got a question. Haaland and Monto out for Tony and Ferguson bench Felix. Oh, Ali, I don't mind the selling Haaland for Tony. I wouldn't be bringing in Ferguson. I don't think Ferguson covers those midfielders at all. And Welbeck and Ferguson, if one does start, will share some minutes. And Welbeck scored late on. Whilst Ferguson's first choice, he's far from a 90-minute man, and he's far from being guaranteed week in, week out. I don't know, Ali. I can't tell you what to do. You're world number one.
Yeah, the Tony bit makes sense. The other bit doesn't.
He's
good though.
Brighton mids, don't you? Not Ferguson.
I think so. But then again, win at number one in the world. Would you bench Darwin, Haaland, or Saka? That's a really hard shout. You can't bench. If I was going to bench Haaland, I'd just get rid of him. If it's not worth having Haaland on the bench this week, really, because he doesn't play next week. But Darwin's got Bournemouth away, and Saka's got Fulham, and he's their best player. So out of the 3, I'm probably going Haaland there.
Oh, yeah, you have to start Darwin against Bournemouth. That could be ugly.
Start Darwin.
I'd bench Saka, I think.
Would you?
But, yeah.
I think I'd just get rid of Haaland if I was.
I'd be tempted to bench boost whatever your other players are.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah.
Lovely that, Ian. Thank you, Ian. I think you're new around here, so hopefully you're liking and subscribing. I think it's probably our last one from VSR. 3 Brighton mids versus 2 mids in Estupiñán. If I could now, let's say I was on a wild card, especially knowing Estupiñán is travelling to Australia in the international break.
Yeah.
I would go 3 Brighton mids, and then I'd go Rashford and Saka would be my 5, I think. I think you can get a good draft with 3 Brighton mids.
Yeah, it's a good shout. I mean, when we picked our teams, I wasn't really thinking along those lines, and McAllister wasn't in our thoughts like he is now. But if you can get all 3 of them, go for it.
Yeah. There we go. Dean or Gianni? I don't know. I mean,
Gianni.
I'd go Dean all day long. Captain. Guys, thank you so much. We had Ali in the chat tonight, which was awesome. And no doubt he'll be back on Monday's show. If you want to hear more from Ali, I spoke to him earlier this week, and there was a small section on my game week preview on my own YouTube channel, which is here in the chat. So if you want to hear from Ali, who looks a bit like Xavi, someone commented saying that today, then yeah, check out my video that I uploaded yesterday. You'll see it on my channel, and you can hear from Ali in person, who speaks really well. He's an Arsenal fan. So yeah, do go and check that out. But also, if you're just joining this channel, go back and watch it, because it was a really good, fun hour. And we'll see you on Monday. Fingers crossed this game week. We all have some big, juicy greens. But for now, he's been Dean, I've been Gianni, and we've been chasing green arrows.